Vroom, 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 vroom. Honk, honk. Get in, losers. We're going struggling. Vroom, 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 vroom. Hello, friends, and welcome to another Ride in the Struggle Bus, where every wheel is an empty triangle. Today we have a Where the Honk Do I Play video, which is always a fun one to go over. For those of you who are unfamiliar with these, it's when we take a look at typically a board state from the middle game where somebody's confused as to what their plan should be, where they should play, and things that they should be looking for. These are real game positions that get sent to me, typically from my students, where they're just a little stuck and they don't know where to go. And we just take a look at that one position and analyze the board, figure out who's got what, and come up with a plan to win the game. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Anyway, as per always, I'd like to thank you guys for watching these videos, and I'd like to thank my Patreon subscribers for supporting the channel. So let's go take a look at the board position. Okay, so here is our board position, and let's not focus too much on how we got here. It looks like this was a fairly competently played game by both players to get to where we are right here. We can kind of see what ended up happening. Potentially a little bit of funkiness on this left side, but that is fine. So we are clearly solidly in the middle game. We are playing as white. White is who submitted the question here. And so we need to figure out what we should be doing. So a couple things before we get into that, or mainly just one thing. In situations like this, where you're really looking at where you should be playing, it's important to have a good understanding of who's ahead in this game. And so you don't need to do any detailed counting, but you can do some, you can do some general counting to see, who's ahead and by how much. So let's just count for white right now, and we'll just kind of try to group it into groups of 10. So we've got about 10 here, probably another 10 here. So that's 20, a little over 30 for this top side. This corner, assuming we get everything, we've got another 10 here, 20, maybe 25 points. So that's about 55. And then over here, maybe we've got about 10 or so. So that's 65 points. And then Comey, we'll just round that to 70. White has about 70 points on this board, give or take. Looking at black, black has about 10 here, probably another 10 here, and then probably, actually, let's count this again because I skipped over this real quick. So this is 10, probably 20, 30. So this is about 40 points right here. And then another 10, another 10, another 30 here. So about 70. And black's got a little bit here. So this is a pretty close game. I think black's probably up a little bit, but not by much. So that's important to know, because if we are way ahead, then we don't need to take any risks. If we are way behind, then we do need to take risks. And if it's pretty even, then we can just look at the good solid moves and go from there. So I'm treating this like black's a little bit ahead, but not by much. So now that we have a good idea of who's winning and by how much, again, it's a pretty close game, we can look at the two main things that we typically want to focus on when we're in middle game, and that is strength of groups and potential, building or reducing potential. It's still a little early to just claim points, though we are getting to the stage in the game where we can justify playing moves simply for converting potential into actual territory. So that's kind of the difference between middle game and late middle game. Is in middle game, you're trying to build the potential, and then late middle game, you start converting that potential into real points. We're kind of on the cusp there. But either way, strength of groups is always important. Potential is always important. So first, let's take a look at this board for strength of groups. Are there any weak groups for either player? So in this situation, everybody looks strong to me. The top for white is clearly strong. It's already alive. The top right for black, already alive. By virtue of the fact of this stone being dead, black is connected up here. This group is alive because it's connected to this and connected to these two stones. The only potential weakness I see for black here is there might be some cuts over here, but probably not, because we can say the same thing about white. And then obviously the bottom right, very strong for black. So black has no weak groups for white. We're alive on the top, we're alive on the side. This corner is fine. This group is connected. This stone's obviously dead. So I don't see really any weaknesses to go after on this board. So now we want to look at either, growing our potential or reducing our opponent's potential, or going in and cashing some points. So where do we consider there to be some potential on this board? The big obvious area is here, right? Because we've got white that's looking to grow their potential this way. We've got black that's looking to grow their potential this way. So this is probably going to be the focal point of the board, is who's going to get a better border here. Additionally, we also have something similar here, where the difference between black or white getting a move like A is pretty big, but this is a little more endgame, looking to cash in points as opposed to grow potential. But we have to acknowledge that this is a pretty large move. Additionally, there's some trickiness here, and we have to discuss it. I'll go over it a little bit more, but we have to discuss it for this one, because it is going to play a lot into probably where I would end up playing here. So the issue is, if you're white, do you know how to handle if your opponent plays c3? And does that stone die? Can you kill that stone? Do you know what the result is here? Does your opponent know what the result is here? Do they even know that if they play there right now, they can live? I guess I kind of spoiled it there. If black plays there, there's a lot of Aji, and we're going to have a lot of trouble killing that stone. So it's tricky, though, because depending on your strength and your skill level and your opponent's strength and skill level, I've done enough reviews to know that, if these are double-digit cube players, black might never play here. And so white might not have on their radar that c3 is actually completely invadable right now. So we do have to go over that a little bit. So really, the question is going to come down to, do we want to build our potential, or do we want to reduce our opponents? So if we want to build, we're going to be playing a move like A or B, just looking to grow our potential out. And if we're looking to reduce, we're going to be playing a move like C, or if we think we can get away with it, even something like D. If these aren't good options, we can also consider something like the slide over here. It is fairly large, but it's not as large as what's going on over here. So I do think this is the focal point of the board. And so it's interesting, because typically I don't give recommendations like this, but again, it really depends on your strength here. And the newer players here really don't need to worry about their opponents playing the 3v here, because their opponents aren't going to know how to handle it. On the flip side, you probably also aren't going to handle it, so it's just going to be a big fighty situation. But interestingly enough, the weaker you are, I think the less likely I would say to care about that 3-3. But the stronger you are, if you're a single-digit cube player or getting close to it, we need to recognize that black can play here. So let's go over some examples of what I mean here. Let's just say that white plays this move, and then black plays here. I think the natural response is for white to play this. Typically, black would hane here, and white would block, and then black would play here. So if your opponent plays this way and you're white, what do? Are you going to take the very natural-looking Atari? Well, if you do that, black plays here, and now it's ko for life. And this is cool for black, because black has some pretty juicy co-threats on this board. Black can play here and do this, and now where's white's co-threat on this board? Tough to say. Is this a co-threat? We'll say sure. Sure, that's a co-threat. We'll play here, and then white retakes. But now black gets something like this, which looks to cut here. And so now all of a sudden white needs to connect, and you can see how this goes. And if black wins this ko, all of a sudden black's alive in the corner. And when we did that counting at the beginning, I'm sure you guys recognize that I fully counted this corner for white, which was, a little dishonest. Um, but so we know that the game was close as long as white retains this corner. But if white loses this corner, the game is most likely over. So we do have to be really aware of that. And there are plenty of other ways this can go. White can resist a little further by playing here, but there's options for black here. And so it's just worth noting that this isn't as easy to contain as it might initially look. So we do just kind of have to go over that. So coming back to this, if we're looking at should we be building or should we be reducing, if our building means that we have a little more strength over here to resist something like that, then we should probably give that a little more value. So if that's the case, something like B is going to be a little more beneficial because now, if it goes this way, we can choose to resist a little bit more. And since we've got some more strength over here, we might be okay, but it's hard to tell. And if you don't think your opponent's going to do that, or you think you're just going to mess it up anyway, then, maybe we can go and invade. Play something like this. If we think we are even, we can play something like this. If we think we're winning, we can maybe just do a simple shoulder hit, though I wouldn't recommend that. If we think we're losing, we could maybe play a move like this. Though honestly, I think this is a move that I would strongly consider if I was looking to reduce as opposed to building. The issue is if black comes to play this way, now the C3 move is going to look quite a bit scarier. So we do have to be mindful of that. So if we're going to invade, we probably want to just look at a reduction so that if black jumps out here, it doesn't feel as much as Sente, so we can go and strengthen our corner and be okay. So I think C is probably a good option. I think B is probably a good option. If we think we're losing and we want to fight, I think we go ahead and play D. If we think that we can win just by outbuilding our opponent, we could consider a move like this. After the dust settles here, I think something around S10 is going to be very large. So something like S10 or S11. So if we think that playing here is going to get our opponent to respond to something like this, then this is going to be really good for us. And then maybe we can even just go here, potentially just even sacrifice those 2 stones to really secure our corner, and then go and take our reduction. And here I think white will probably be a little ahead, though it's tough to tell. It's still very much a game here. It is very, very close. And before I do these, I of course take a look at what the game looks like through AI. And at this point in the game, AI says this game is pretty even. Though again, AI knows about all the Aji in the corner. And so a lot of the recommendations that AI is going to give is going to be because it knows there's stuff in the corner. But that's not necessarily information that we can just say, here's the move, because if you don't know the AI sequences and your opponents don't know the AI sequences, then we shouldn't be basing our moves off of that. That's kind of an important thing to understand when you're using AI, is sometimes it gives you moves that just make perfect sense. And you're like, yep, I understand why that's a good move. In this case, though, like even when I looked at this, I thought B was smaller than something like C or D. And C and D are both fine moves. We don't lose many points on that. But I understand a little better now that AI likes this because it strengthens the corner a little bit more. But I think if we play either of these 3 moves, we're probably going to be in an okay situation. And my student who sent this agreed. They ended up playing L5, but they got a little greedy with it. And tried to get a little too much out of it and just really jumped in, and eventually black called them out. And here now we're in a lot of trouble because this group is actively getting surrounded. It's going to be tough for this group to live. And if this group lives and black is able to get some strength here, then all of a sudden this 3-3 move becomes much, much, much scarier. So I think white would have been fine if probably at this point they decided to jump out with something like this, or, you know, kept it a little more chill and played something like this. I think it would have been okay. But diving in, I think, was just asking for a little too much. But anyway, I think it's interesting to go over the considerations that a stronger player will have looking at a board like this. And of course, a stronger player than myself is going to be a little more refined on this. They're going to have a better idea of why these moves are better for worse, especially for their play style. But I think it's important to go over, spend a little more time on these mid-game positions, because it's not something I can really do in the bus rides. I just kind of go through and say, I'm playing this for this reason, and it makes sense. But the mid-game decisions are really complicated. They're really tricky, and sometimes it's nice just to slow down and take a look at a position and, you know, apply the thoughts of, you know, how do we really approach a position like this. So if you guys have any questions like this, you have a board position and you're like, I just really don't know what to do with this. I know what AI says to do, but, you know, why wasn't my move good? Or how about these other options? Or what should I be considering here? And you want a human to tell you, feel free to send me the game. And then maybe I can make a video out of this as well, because it is, I think, a very helpful tool. Anyway, that is where we're going to leave this one. So as per always, thanks for coming out for another Ride and Struggle Bus where every wheel is an empty triangle. Have a good one, guys.